Today, we are setting up two more inserts in my garden planner, a vegetable garden map or layout insert, and a gardening tracker for watering and fertilizing. In part one, I discussed how we are growing vegetables in raised beds and a vertical planter this year. So I'm showing how I set up my garden map, which is commonly referred to as a garden layout, for my raised garden beds. A garden layout is simply a plan for what you're going to grow and where you're going to grow it. The following steps are not the only way to do this. These are just the steps that I personally followed. Step one is to measure the garden bed, determine sun exposure, and decide what you want to grow. So before you get started on your insert, you'll have wanted to record measurements of your garden bed, figured out how much sun it gets and how many hours of sun it gets, which side is facing north, as well as decided what plants you'd like to grow. Step two is to draw the shape of the garden bed outline. Using the measurements you recorded earlier, you'll want to draw a simple outline of your garden bed on the insert. I am using a sheet of dot grid for this, and the purpose of this insert is simply to know where each plant needs to be planted in my raised planter beds and to act as a reference tool throughout the growing season. Since we're planting, for example, 3 different types of basil and 3 different types of peppers, it'll help me quickly remember which plant is which. Also, I really like that I will be able to keep this map or layout and reference it in future years if I want to remember what I planted, what worked well being planted in that location, etc. Step 3 is to decide how you want to organize your garden. Before placing individual plants, think about whether you want to group similar crops together. For example, I have one section dedicated to herbs, one for vegetables, one for fruits, and one for cut flowers. Other examples might be to group plants with similar watering needs or sunlight requirements, or to group companion plants. Step 4 is to draw pre-existing permanent features. Next, draw any permanent features such as trellises that will remain in the garden throughout the season. You could also consider mapping out where sprinklers or drip irrigation are located if you'd like during this step. And personally, I indicated where my trellises were located by drawing these triangular shapes. Step 5 is to look up plant spacing. Look up the mature spacing and dimensions for each crop. We started most of our plants from seeds this year, but some were overwintered, so they were actually already in the planter beds. And when we planted everything last year, we figured out the proper spacing between the plants just by using sticks and then physically measuring the space in between those sticks. It was just a quick and easy way to get it done. For that reason, I'm not making this map exactly to scale this year since, like I said, we already figured out the spacing and we're basically planting exactly the same plants. If you haven't figured out spacing between your plants yet, the free printables that I gave away in part 1 of this video series might come in handy because on those we wrote down what the plant dimensions and spacing were. And if you do want to make your layout to scale, you would need to measure the size of your garden and then determine the size that each dot grid square represents. So for example, if each square represents 1/2 foot, I would need to make the length of my diagram 32 dot grid squares long since my raised planter bed is 16 feet long. And if you don't have dot grid, you could use your ruler to measure out a specific length and draw a scale bar next to your key. In this example of a garden layout, I drew a scale bar that says 1 inch equals 1 foot. Step 6 is to place your largest plants first. Begin adding your plants to the map, starting with the crops that require the most space. I used circles to symbolize each of my plant locations, and in my case, the largest plants were the tomatoes, cucumbers, lawn beans, and tomatillos. And these also happen to be the vining plants, which is why I placed them on the trellises. Step 7 is to fill in the remaining space. Fill in the remaining space with smaller plants, keeping your groupings or sections that you decided on in mind. And one of my smaller plants this year is alyssum, which I am growing around the border of the vegetable garden since it attracts beneficial insects. And I did this also last year. If you are using drip lines but don't already have them in place, you can use this step to draw where they will be placed. Step 8 is to color code and create a legend. I drew a legend at the bottom of the layout and wrote out the names of each plant and assigned each one a different color. This, to me, makes it easy to identify each plant at a glance without having a bunch of messy writing all over the place. When choosing the colors that you want to color code with, I think it's really important that the colors that you go with are different enough so that you will be able to quickly tell them apart from each other, so you don't accidentally confuse the two and make a mistake when you're planting. I know this because I have made that mistake in the past. Step 9 is to review your layout. Before finalizing your map, double check that plants have enough room to reach their mature size and that taller crops won't unnecessarily shade out the shorter crops. And then once you're happy with that layout, your garden map or your garden layout is complete and ready to use throughout your growing season. I am also going to be using a habit tracker this year for keeping track of watering and fertilizing my green stalk vertical planter. So I'm labeling each tracker with the month and then specifying whether it's for watering plants one time per day or fertilizing one time every 2 weeks. So at the moment, I have 2 trackers dedicated to each month. And I have been leaving my garden planner out and open to this specific page so that I can fill it in or check it off each day as quickly as possible. And the reason why I chose to use a tracker format as opposed to a calendar for this is because I felt I didn't necessarily need all of the space that comes with a weekly or monthly calendar just to keep track of 2 tasks. I also like that I can see several months at a time because they all fit onto one page. So each tracker has 31 days, and for the months that have less than 30 days, I'm using a gray highlighter to shade in the box if there are only 30 days. And my goal is to add fertilizer to the green stalk every 14 days. So to keep track of fertilizing, I outlined where 14 days fell and then wrote 14 in the box. Then I counted 14 days from that and wrote 28 in that box. So that was June 14th and June 28th. And I then continued into the following months. So 14 days after June 28th is July 12th. So I wrote a 12 in that box and so on. And I'm just using a black pen to check off the fertilizer boxes once fertilizing has been completed. Next week, I hope you'll join me again because I will be adding 4 more inserts to my garden planner and we'll be discussing how I'm planning out succession planting and seeding. See you next Saturday.
Somewhere, somehow, I guess I lost it all. Try to keep it up and standing tall. Why don't you stay?